It's another Saturday and it's time for Spirit Talk. My name is Emmanuel and today we're going to be talking about humility and how that is a phenomena that seems to come just before a breakthrough, just before honor. Welcome to Spirit Talk by Free Legions, a platform for those who love God and seek fellowship without crippling judgment, without the human control systems, and without the religious ways of the world. So come join us as we dig into spiritual issues that are related to our everyday life. So it's another Saturday and I'm ready. We've had our summer this time in Norway. I mean, this week it's kind of like been real summer. So I thank God for that. I am so happy. It's been wonderful. I hope you had a good week wherever you are. And I'm looking forward to this because today we're going to be digging further into the topic of humility and why it is an important component in, the path with God, and why we should not be, why we should not be discouraged when humility comes. Because in fact, humility seems to come before honor, before a breakthrough. If you think of it, have you ever had a breakthrough, a great achievement of any kind, without a major struggle and humility or some kind of event that is, you really don't like, that is pushing your ego, your pride, or your lesser self in a bad way? Have you ever had that? I don't think I've had that. And it seems to be a biblical principle, and it seems to be a balance between good and bad, as if there's the scales, and as if God cannot release a blessing without first allowing an equal amount of trouble, of darkness or attacks in the same kind of area. There seems to be a connection there, and I find that very fascinating. Is it the one that is causing the other or the other way? I mean, is it the blessing that needs for an attack to come first in order to be matured? Or is it simply a law that says that for God to be able to give a blessing, He also has to allow the enemy to test and tempt and plague the person so that the person has a choice? Does the person want to pass the test and get the blessing, or does it fail? These are the kind of lines that I see behind it all, and it's interesting. If you have thoughts about this, I would love to hear from you and hear what you have to say about these things, because I'm not the one sitting here with all the answers. I'm just a curious person, and I love exploring. I love learning and chewing on these things, and sometimes I find something that is golden and good, and at other times I'm stuck and I'm looking for answers, and perhaps you have them. if we look in the Bible, we see that Joseph, he was severely humiliated. I mean, he was treated so incredibly bad. And he was a chosen one. He was of great value. And if it was us being thrown into a well, being put in jail, I mean, all of these unfair events, we would most likely be discouraged, perhaps bitter, perhaps angry. I mean, there's so many human reactions that would have been natural and, easy to explain and defend. But it doesn't say that Joseph did any of these things. He kept up his guts and his courage and his love for God and his faithfulness. And that was probably his way of passing the test. Perhaps it was due to his pride that these kind of tests and humiliations was necessary, so that he would be cleansed and matured and turned into a good vessel for God. Because he couldn't come into the position that God had for him if he still had this clutter of pride and look how great I am inside of him. But perhaps also it wasn't just that he was pride in the first place. Perhaps God saw that if you're going to be in this position, you're going to be under so much pressure, and you will come into new circumstances and have new accusations and all kinds of stuff coming against you. And if there's any pride in you, then it will blossom in that position. And so because I love you and because you are chosen, I am giving you a hard time. I am allowing things to happen to you so that you get the chance to cleanse out properly and become a solid, pure vessel that can operate for me. Now, I may be talking for myself, but my lesser mind, well, that's not how my mind is thinking normally. When something really bad happens, I'm not thinking, yay, God is preparing me for something awesome and I'm gonna grow. And well, the first thing that comes to mind is, woe me, what is going on, poor me, this is so bad, God help me. But at times it is God that is actually allowing these things, because it is shaping us and preparing us to become exactly what He wants us to be. And that is awesome. So the trick is to just go beyond our human thought, our initial thought that, wow, this is bad, and just get back into God and ask, what's the purpose? Why is this happening? What do you want me to do? And what is the best reaction that I can have in this situation? If we think of David, he's another example. He was also chosen. He was also walking with God in a great way. And he was also put through all kinds of harassments and attacks and humiliating situations that was so unfair. But he kept his guts up, his faith, his intention was still good. He loved God and he did his best in every situation. He really walked with God instead of getting angry and wanting revenge and just feel sorry for himself and things like that. He took the steps needed and he did it with brilliance. And again, just like with Joseph, we see that for every step he was purged, he was strengthened and prepared for something that was coming, and perhaps we know what is coming in our lives and perhaps we don't. But if we're going through a process like this, it is the best for us to be able to realize these connections and look at it this way, that wow, I'm getting a proper purging, I'm being strengthened, I'm being prepared to handle and tolerate pressure in a way that is not of the ordinary. God is preparing me, He's giving me the chance to do something for Him. And in order for me to be able to be a vessel for Him, I need to let go of these things and accept and embrace the process. It's a new thought. It's not the mundane level, but it's a good thought. It helps us and it makes us so much more fit for the battle, for the challenges. Every spring, it's normal to have kind of like a spring clean. And that's how I look at this. The humiliation that comes before honor is like a big spring clean, where you just go through everything and make it properly clean. Deep cleanse. And, well, if you knew that the King would come and visit you in your home, what would you do? Well, I think I would at least start cleaning. I would go in all the little places that I didn't, normally go, and make sure that it was clean and tidy and nice and everything put in order. But if we don't expect the King to come, then we may just be annoyed if somebody says that, hey, you better clean. Look, here's dust and it's greasy. So we change our attitude and our mindset based on our understanding and our expectations. But we live in a state when we follow Christ where we should expect the King to come. He is coming, and for every day that we are able to cleanse out some more of the dirt and the junk that we carry, He comes into us in a bigger portion, in a bigger way. So a spring clean is definitely a good thing because the King is coming. It is time for the Norwegian word of the day.
Yippee!
Yes, it's true. We're gonna be learning a little bit more Norwegian. And so today, because we are talking about a king that is coming, I will be teaching you how to say Kanskje kommer kongen. And that means perhaps the king comes. Now we kind of know that the King is coming, but the reason why I'm going to teach you Kanskje kommer kongen, perhaps the King comes, is because that is a very famous child song in Norway. It's a funny one. It was very popular when I grew up, so that should be like perhaps 30 years ago. And it's still popular. And well, basically, the song is made by two guys and they're funny, And they're telling all these stories about what they're gonna do if the king comes. And they are putting out all this nice food and preparing all the great stuff that they can think of. And it's for the king, of course. But then in the end of the song, it kind of like comes through that, well, the chance of the king coming may not be big at all. But then, if he doesn't come, there's gonna be so much good food for them. So it's a funny song. And back to the term, kanske, that is the word for perhaps. And kommer, that is the word for coming. And the last one is kongen, which means the king. So we actually saying perhaps comes the king, but that's how the Norwegian grammar is, and so that's how we say it. Kanske kommer kongen. And if you would like, I'm gonna share the real song, and you'll get to hear some proper Norwegian child song.
Kanske kommer kongen hit till middag nå idag. Vi har däcket på perrongen med god mat av alla slag. Majonnäs och gåselök.
So that was it. And so now we looked at David and we looked at Joseph and how they went through big time challenges, tough obstacles and unfair situations, and they were kind of like purging their ego, their lesser self, their pride, their arrogance, their emotional responses, and all of these things that we have. And as I said before, I cannot think of any big breakthroughs in my life without having some kind of challenge like that before, In fact, when I was a teen, 15, 14 years old, I remember we had a lecture or something, and it was about drugs and, behaving well and be careful with this and that. And I remember that I would never ever use drugs. That was my attitude, because it was destroying the brain, and I wanted my brain to be as it was. But then I remember I also had this other opinion, and I have no idea where it came from, but that was that I would never ever commit suicide, because I knew that the moment you want to commit suicide, that's probably the closest you ever get to a breakthrough. And so if you just hang in a little bit longer, you're gonna see your breakthrough. And that is a wise thing, and well, I have no idea where it came from, but I actually needed that later in life. I knew that suicide was not an option. And so through all the things that happened later on, it was a great help to me to know that that was just out of the question. It's not an option. Don't even go there. Don't think of it, because it's not the solution. And so if any of you out there happen to listen to this and you are going through such a challenging situation that you're on the edge of giving up, perhaps not just on the project or whatever you are trying to fix or get a breakthrough on, or perhaps on life itself, then remember that just before the breakthrough, that's where you're gonna see everything as dark as ever before. And that is a sign that you should take to heart and know that, wow, God is at work. God has real plans for me, and they are close. Because He is allowing this darkness to open up in such a way that it is almost consuming me to test my faith. So stretch out your hand right now and say, yes, God, I take it. I take your version. I don't believe the lie. Everything may look black and dark and hopeless and terrible right here and now, but I know it's a lie. It's temporary. And in 1 second, everything can change. So I choose to do it your way and wait for that change. Just hang in there. That's all it takes. I'm a great fan of John Paul Jackson. I love his teachings, and unfortunately he has passed away. I miss him. I didn't know him personally, but he was definitely someone I felt I could lean on. I found something solid in him, both his humility and also his knowledge and his search for truth without fear and without the old religious dogmas and limitations, but just truth. And he had this incredible knowledge, but he had it along with the most amazing humility. I loved that. He was a character, really, an example. Anyway, I am talking about him because there's one thing that he said that really, really stuck with me. And it's a great thing that is very related to what I'm talking about right now. And that is, well, basically, what he says is that the deeper the valley you go through, the higher the mountain you will be able to stand on. And the broader the valley, the broader will also your mountain be. And then lastly, he had one more. We have deep and we have broad. Yeah. How long the value, no, not the value. Oh, I'm messing. How long the valley is a sign of how long the mountain is. And what am I talking about? Well, the valley is the challenge. It's when you're down, you're walking through like the valley of death, and the challenges and everything that you have to go through in life before you get up on the mountain, closer to God, more perspective. It's like your mission, where you get to do something for God. That's what you do on the mountain. That's what Moses did. He went up on the mountain and met God and did one of the most important things in his entire life. And so also this is a picture for us. The longer the valley is, the longer time we go through struggles and challenges and just facing opposition, the longer will God be able to use us in our mission. It means He is preparing us to get what it takes to stand for a long time, to have persistence and not give up, and patience, and to see the long lines and survive in that long walk. And the wider the valley speaks of how wide the mountain is, and that means the wideness of your problems. I mean, some people have problem in one area, for example, health, but everything else is fine. And then other people have problems in all areas. I mean, everything is a mess, and it just keeps on being a mess. And that speaks of the broadness of your mission and the wideness of how God can use you, the range that He can use you for. And then lastly, the deep of the well of the valley. That is about how deep you go into the dark. That is how high God can take you. And just look at Christ. He went down into the pit. You can't get any further down than that. And He rose up to the heavens afterwards. And that takes us back to what I talked about in the beginning, about the balance of the scales. That it's as if God cannot grant a big blessing, a big portion of light, without also first allowing something that is of the opposite. And whether the opposite is, well, triggering the light, if it is needed to actually create it and make it happen, or if it's just a law of justice. Well, I don't know, but it happens. It seems to be a rule that we just have to play by. So, before we end this show, I would like to give a prayer. And of course, it's going to be about humility and the things that we struggle with and the challenges that we have in, giving up hopes and not having enough patience and faith and hope, doubt, all of these things. So I thank you, God, that you see this, that you help us see it your way, that you help us see that you are working in us and preparing us to be all that you want us to be, and to know you, to never ever give up, and to recognize your patterns and your laws so that we will be strengthened and able to stand and to go through this deep cleanse and become pure, strong, solid vessels for you, God. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, I thank you that you are with us and that you strengthen us in this, that you give us peace in the process, that you actually make us feel at home in the middle of the storm, that you actually make us at peace, even though everything is like a mess around us in the physical, because you can come in any situation. You can show yourself and have your presence embrace us in the most ridiculous situations here on earth. It is not so that how great it is around us is a measure of how great your presence is with us. I mean, what we do bear fruits, and there's all of these kind of things, but if you look at Joseph, if you look at David, and you thought, wow, you're not bearing much good fruit here, that's gonna be a bummer, because God was preparing them big time. And so He is preparing us as well. Perhaps we're not going to be Davids and Josephs and things like that, or that big. But the same principle goes for us as well. On any scale, whether it's big or small, in order for light and mastery and maturity and the good qualities to come in, we have to crush the old, the hard, the wrong, and get it out. And that is not something that we do so lightly. I mean, if we were able to just give it all away and say, okay, I leave it here, now I take in all the good. If we were able to do that, I think we would have done it that way. But the thing is that we cling to these old, dead things because we think that that is our identity and what we need, and it's what we are familiar with. And so we actually hang on to them. We don't want to let go. And so often we don't see the difference, because what we've been used to, what we've been raised up in, that is what we assume is the right thing. It's always been there, and most likely it will always be there still. And that's the thing. It doesn't mean that it is a good thing. So I thank you now, God, that you pointed out for us all of the things that we can let go of here and now to make our path easier and to make it more fun, more gentle. Help us, God, to change and become everything you want us to be in a soft and gentle way. We don't need to fight against all of these things. Actually, all we need to do is to look at you and let go. I know it's hard, but bit by bit, that's what we're doing. And by that, I'm gonna close up this show for today. Afterwards, we're gonna have a private prayer gathering online. And by private, it means that it is not public, it's not being broadcasted. It does not mean that you are not welcome to come and join. You are welcome, and if you haven't joined before, then you can go to freelegions.com, or you can go to Free Legions at Facebook and send a message, and we will sort out the technical details. Because right now we are using Skype to connect, and the reason why we're doing that is because then, first of all, it's private, but also everyone gets to partake on an equal level, and it's just amazing to see how God shows up, and it is so good to connect with people on different continents, and distance is no longer an obstacle. So we're going to be doing that at 8 o'clock Central Europe time today, and that is 11 a.m. in California and 2 p.m. in Florida. And we're doing that every Saturday after this Spirit Talk show. I would also like to give thanks to Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. He is the one composing and producing the music that we're using. So thanks, Kevin. It's free licensed music, so it's available there. And I'll be back next Saturday with another spirit talk, and at that time I will be talking about communication, because that is such a difficult, I don't know what to call it even. I mean, it's a big subject and it's so complicated. Most people think that just talking to each other, that's easy. There are so many pitfalls, and rarely do people talk about the same thing. I mean, we're having conversations, but what I am saying may be miles away from what you are hearing, and that is a strange thing. So I'm gonna go and dig into that next week, and that will be 10 a.m. US Pacific, and that means 1 p.m. in Florida, 18 o'clock in UK London, and 7 o'clock in the evening in Central Europe. Until that, I wish you a blessed week. I hope to see you again next week, and take care.